producer Anson, and this is the News at Night. On tonight's show, we bring you a special News at Night dedicated to acid jazz. It's the name of a British record label, but it's also being used to define an entire genre of music. Soulful, funky, groovy tunes with a jazzy beat. British bands and DJs like Galliano, Giles Peterson, Eddie Pillar, Jamiroquai, Us Three and many, many more have brought the jazz vibe back into the limelight. But England's not the only country where interesting new projects and bands are flourishing. Germany has definitely caught the acid jazz vibe. More and more labels, bands, clubs and DJs are proving that Germany's got soul. Reason enough for us to check out the German acid jazz scene. Welcome to the land of good grooves, soulful vibes and jazz harmonies. Welcome to Germany. Yes, by all means, the Germans know how to be funky. But before we take a more in-depth look at the musical variety of Germany's acid jazz scene, one important question has to be answered.
Acid jazz. Who knows? I have no idea.
If it's itching and you're going like, wow, and you have like these nasty sounds in it, it's kind of like acid. Just like when it hits you, it burns.
Acid klingt schön verrückt und Jazz ist auch verrückt und deswegen muss es eigentlich total verrückt sein. Ist es aber nicht irgendwie.
There's no such thing.
It's not house, it's downbeat, but soul, ragu, and jazz.
It's out there popping some pills and do jazz. Yeah.
This is just the latest kind of soul music, I suppose.
I think they came up with that in Ibiza in some strange summertime club.
Right in the middle of the acid house trend, somebody was coming up to Giles reportedly and asked him, what are you playing? He was playing 60s, kind of soulful jazz stuff, and he said acid jazz.
I hate that word, actually.
There's no such thing.
Germany's premier female soul jazz artist, Rad, was actually born in San Francisco. The singer moved to Hamburg 3 years ago. Her first album, Radified, established her as one of Europe's most interesting soul jazz acts.
I grew up listening to soul and funk, and I studied for a long time jazz, and I played very concentratedly a lot of Afro-Cuban music, so I kind of like all music, good music.
Also into good music, preferably old jazz samples, is Frankfurt-based DJ project Jazz Con Baz. The duo have released 2 albums so far called Kicking Jazz Volume 1 and 2, on which they combine old jazz samples with a modern hip-hop beat.
Jazz Con Baz is not really jazz, it's only a jazz influence. I mean, we cannot say it's really jazz because we don't have a live band or whatever. The thing is only a studio.
Not a studio project at all, and Munich-based soul funkers, Poets of Rhythm. The 8-piece band is best when they play 100% live. Their musical roots can be traced right back to the 70s when funk was the word. The Poets spread their message through endless parties. And oh yeah, did we hear a little James Brown there?
A little more into the independent sort of sound that was going on down in the States in the 70s, and more like this garage, cheap funk sound. So James Brown was an influence for us, but first of all we got these like interests in smaller bands.
Garage funk bands are not a major influence for Frankfurt-based trio A Tropic Tree. They're into real hip-hop, flavoured with a lot of jazz and club soul. Even before the release of their first single, My Thing, A Tropic Tree were compared to Diggable Planets, which indicates this band is more than just a local phenomenon. They're a 90s band with a good feel for the jazz vibe of the past.
We're kind of like a hip-hop group, but we use jazz elements.
Yeah, just original flavor, real flavor in the music, it brings a, kind of a melody to, rap music, it's just like, you just think back on those days where they used to be dancing around and playing those trumpets or saxophones, whatever you want to call it, right? And you just give that real joyful feeling,
Over in Berlin, ambitious label Amber Records is pursuing a similar aim with the highly acclaimed Cool Strutting Volume 1. With Volume 2 in the making and the single Daddy on the Run now being produced, Amber Records aim for an international market.
We
did call it modern soul jazz, but there's a lot more to it. It's hip hop. It can be hip hop. It can be jazz poetry. It can be anything that's got soul and jazz. But it's not like necessarily that there's jazz harmonies in the songs. You know, it's just a feeling, I guess. It's like sort of our personal taste that we like to put on record and bring to people.
Closer to original jazz is Slop Shop, a band from Frankfurt who combines serious jazz with samples, DJing, and most importantly, a good groove. They don't like being labelled and think that traditional categories don't work for their music anyway.
Also die Trennung zwischen Unterhaltung und ernster Musik, E- und U-Musik, ist eigentlich völliger Blödsinn und das haben wenig Leute begriffen. Bei uns ist es Spaß und ernste Musik.
Uns erstmal grooven und dann öffnen die Leute ihre Ohren und dann hören sie auch, sind sie erst bereit, überhaupt weiter zuzuhören, denke ich mir.
There was always an underground of people who like this kind of music to dance to, but very few. And you know, jazz has always been a white, intellectual, middle class kind of movement that didn't really like people dancing, didn't like long hair, you know, but it's changed now.
It may have changed in England years ago, and London-based Corduroy is just one of many examples of the lively and modern British soul jazz scene. In 1994, the scene is thriving, but even though Hamburg's legendary Mojo Club is crowded today, it wasn't like that when the club opened 5 years ago.
In the beginning it was a little bit difficult to make it happen, but now for 3 years or 3.5 years it's very busy, and it's still busy, so we can't complain about that. Right now it's bands coming out of their little shacks, you know, where they've been practicing for all those years, getting demo tapes out, and it's more and more groups that are actually doing something nice.
Really good. It's picking up, and the clubs are full, and the people are enjoying themselves, and it's big party time.
I think it's because there's people like the people who run the Mojo Club, and there's so many DJs and new labels coming up. There's so much talent there, you know, that it's coming through.
But not everything is that positive.
Especially coming out of here, you have to show like extra more, put extra more into your stuff, and because so that people recognize you as actually being real hip hop and being here, because they just think we're copycats because we're trying to be like American or trying to be like English and stuff, even though we do have our own style.
So, what is the German style then?
I think that people in Germany tend to like their grooves a lot harder overall, like really dirty and really hard.
And stuff in America, if you listen to it, it's a lot smoother, cleaner sound, and the stuff coming out of Germany and specifically out of Soulciety, it's a more rough, live, raw feel, and that might be what the Germans have that's kind of unique, because they don't try to clean the sound, they just let it stay the way it is.
This approach even brought soul legend Bobby Bird to Hamburg, where he recorded his first ever studio album.
What we offered to Bobby is to do a real album as it was back in the early days, like with a real band live in a studio, played live with a band together. And that's why this album is so fantastic, because the feel is definitely there, as it is on stage.
Playing live and being real are the key points in soul jazz, and there is a growing audience who appreciate this.
Es gibt hier auch eine Szene, die darauf sehr dankbar reagiert. Also die auch wirklich mit dem ganzen Techno-Kram nichts anfangen kann. Also Leute zwischen 25 und 35 haben hier keine Orte, wo sie hingehen können und keine Musik, die sie hören können. Also die freuen sich, wenn wir kommen.
People today, they're really tired of this kind of music, what happened in 1994. Got all this dance floor stuff, for example, Mr. Vane, and all the kids listen to it, but I think the older people, they're really tired of that, because for them that's not really music. It's not coming from the soul, it's only to make money.
By now, you can also make money selling soul jazz in Germany, and there are good reasons why.
But obviously it has something to do with people, kind of going back to those natural and real sounds and seeing live bands. I mean, what are you going to get if you go to a live techno gig?
Well, not a live band, that's for sure. But other than that, what's so special about soul jazz?
It has melody, it has beat, it has feeling. You know, it combines a feeling with rhythm and sound. And there's a lot of that that's lost nowadays in music.
Well, you have to admit today there's a wash of a lot of, like you said, there's a lot of techno and a lot of things that are very, very synthetically produced, and I think that this is a movement that's kind of counter that, you know? It's going back to traditional musicianship. It's going back to practicing your ass off. Oh, can I say that?
Yes, you can. And if German soul jazz musicians continue to practice, just as Rad says, there might soon come the day when you'll hear even more of the German vibe than today.
Germany is now probably the biggest producer of this kind of music in Europe. And it won't be long, I think, before we see a German band in the British charts or in the Italian charts playing this kind of music. It won't be long.
Excellent stuff, and that is it for tonight's News at Night.